Hi everyone, this is Heather Lawton from the Flourish.Academy. This is episode 456. Today we're talking about updating Lightroom in Photoshop, and the reason this came up is because I've had a few questions recently. One is, hey, Lightroom is slow, Photoshop is slow, what is going on? The first question I say to you or ask you is it up to date? Have you updated it recently? And a lot of you will say, well, I haven't updated it yet because I'm afraid to. And my response to that is, if it is not performing well, if Lightroom is slow, if Photoshop is slow, the filters are slow, and you're afraid to update because you don't want to break anything, it's already not working the way you intend it to. Is that correct? So what do you have to lose? Hi Raina, it's great to see you. Thank you. You have to keep this software up to date. I know, everybody's like, oh, what if something doesn't work? What if there's a problem? If you wait a few days or maybe even a couple weeks from the time Adobe releases an update to the time you install it, I understand that. That's fine. I do that with my iPhone. I never update it as soon as that update is released. I wait a little while in case there are some bugs that they need to work out. But for the most part, you do need to keep this software up to date. But then another friend of mine had a different issue. She went to update her Lightroom and it said, Lightroom is up to date. And she was like, no, it's not. And Lightroom was like, yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Okay, what happens when Adobe releases a major new update? It is an entirely new software application. And if you, first of all, how are you updating? Are you updating through the Adobe Manager? So that's the little icon at the top of your screen, Adobe icon, you click it, and you can see all of your applications. Again, when they release a full dot upgrade, so for instance, Photoshop is now at 20 dot something. I also have Photoshop version 19 installed on my computer. But if I went to Photoshop 19, or if I went to Lightroom version 6, if I had that on my machine and it was standalone, and I asked if there were any updates or update, it would say no, there are no updates because Adobe is not updating that particular version anymore. So it wouldn't work, and it would tell you there wasn't an update. You have to make sure that you have the most recent version, and that's the version that you're updating. So what you also need to do is when you update, this is my approach, when I update to Photoshop 20, I have 19 still on my computer for a little while as I learn some things, and I also teach it, so I like to make sure I know both versions, but ultimately, I will go into the Adobe Manager and I will remove it. So I'm not confused by seeing two Photoshops, both in Adobe Manager and on my hard drive, because then you don't ever really know which version you're updating. So I'm talking about, Raina's asking, what are we talking about? We're talking about updating Lightroom and Photoshop and the best practices for doing so. Number one, keep it up to date, especially if you're on the Creative Cloud plan. I mean, why would you not? And also keep your operating system up to date. If something's acting suspicious, it's probably because something needs to be updated. But an issue that you might run into is that you might have multiple versions of the software installed on your computer. So when there is a major upgrade to an application, such as Lightroom or Photoshop, you need to install the new version and remove the old version via the Adobe Manager. How will you know? If you open the Adobe Manager and you see two Photoshops or two Lightrooms, I'm not talking about Lightroom Mobile. I'm not talking about Lightroom CC. I'm speaking solely of Lightroom Classic. If you see two versions of Lightroom Classic in your Adobe Manager, like I am seeing right now, I wonder if I have it on my laptop. I could show you. I have two, oh boy, I need to log back in. If you have two versions, you will see, no, I don't have it on my laptop. I only have one installed on my laptop. But on my iMac, I have two versions of Lightroom to install and that I could update. I could either update the older version, and I think that was called CC 2015, and there's a CC 2018. So you would have to update the version that you are using. Raina is asking, which icon do I click? I do mine through the Adobe Creative Cloud. Let me show you here. Let me open a new window. this icon, Raina, at the top. See that? You click that icon. It looks like a chain link, but it's actually the Adobe Creative Cloud logo. You click that. And if you don't have this, you need to install the Adobe Manager. That's how I manage everything. Because what can happen is if you have an older version of Lightroom, and by older, I mean you could have Lightroom CC 2015 on your machine, and you go through Lightroom and you say update, it's gonna say there are no updates available because that particular version is done. And Adobe is on to the next version and they're updating the latest version. So for instance, they're not updating Lightroom 6 anymore, the standalone version. So if you think, oh, I'm gonna update it, you have to purchase CC to get the latest version. If you are on the Creative Cloud, you have to make sure you're updating the right Lightroom. This sounds like maybe I need to do a screencast showing you this. But on my, on my iMac, I have 2 versions of Lightroom right now and 2 versions of Photoshop. But I do that because I teach and I need to be in these different versions. But periodically, and what I should do is just remove, and you can do it through the Adobe Manager. You can go to Photoshop, like I have Photoshop 19, version 19, and I can remove that from my manager and from my machine. I can uninstall. And then I would just be left with Photoshop 20 point whatever. What is the new one? Manage. Let me see if it tells me here. It does not say. 20 point something, 20.0.2 or 1.2. It doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date version. The reason this comes up is because a friend of mine was having trouble. It was saying Lightroom was already up to date when she knew it wasn't. But I'm wondering, I didn't get a chance to follow up with her, but I'm wondering if it was because it was an older version of Lightroom. Make sure you have the most recent, make sure it's up to date, and make sure you are uninstalling the older versions just to keep everything nice and neat and clean and tidy. Let me know if you have any questions on this or if you need further explanation. I'll happily create a screencast showing you how to walk through this process. But again, it's pretty simple. If you head out to your Adobe Manager, it's the icon. If you don't have that, you just need to install that, and that's how I manage all of my apps. I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video.